You do not want to get this wrong. When planning an extraordinary trip, planning on where to stay can make or break your experience. Let's dive in and explore St. Lucia. Choosing where to stay in St. Lucia can make or break your trip. After staying in both Rodney Bay and Soufriere, as well as touring 6 different resorts all over the island, I'm giving you an honest review of both areas, the advantages and disadvantages, and some surprising discoveries we made while exploring this exquisite little island. This is part 2 in the series on planning your trip to St. Lucia. The biggest thing to understand about this tiny little island is that there are 2 distinct areas, the north as well as the south, and how different those experiences are. The north near Rodney Bay is much more touristy, a lot more developed, and has a large selection of the resorts to stay in. The south is much more local, a lot more tropical, and more underdeveloped, not as touristy as the north end. The other thing to consider is that the airport, the main airport, UVF, is at the very south tip of the island, which means if you're staying in the south or up to Rodney Bay, you're probably looking at about a 45 to 1 hour drive to your resort. However, if you're staying up in Rodney Bay, that's going to stretch to about 1.5 to 2 hour drive all the way up to the northern tip of the island. Because it doesn't seem like it's that big on the map, you're thinking, no big deal. But it does take a very long time. The other thing you need to consider is your proximity to the different attractions and sites around the island and what you might want to be exploring while you're visiting. There are certain things up in the north that you may want to stay there so that you can explore that area of the island. But if you're really into kind of the natural stuff, the pitons, the waterfalls, the mud baths, that is all located in the south of the island. That's why a lot of travelers going to St. Lucia decide to split their stay between half of it in the north and half of it in the south, so they kind of get the best of both worlds. So let's dive into the north end of the island. Why would you want to stay there? Who is this perfect for? Well, it's really great if it's your first time to the island. It's going to feel a lot more like other Caribbean islands. This is where all the major resorts are. We specifically toured the Sandals, Grand St. Lucian, as well as Royalton, which are both on the north end of the island. But there are a variety of other resorts all scattered around the Rodney Bay area. This is the more developed area. It has a lot of the shopping centers. It has Rodney Bay Marina, which is where a lot of the boat trips go out of. So you have a lot of things going on there. You also have the Friday night street party in Castries that is on the north end. So that gives you some of the local vibe if you want to experience that culture. It is the furthest from your major airport though. There is a small airport, but that is really for inter-island connections, not so much from the United States or Canada. So if you're flying in from the US or Canada, you're flying in to UVF, which is at the southern tip of the island. That means that it's going to be about 1.5 to 2 hours. So as long as you're good with that, go ahead, stay in that north end. I think if you haven't been to St. Lucia and you're not willing to, how would I say, quote unquote, rough it a little because of the tropical nature of the south, then Rodney Bay is going to be the better choice for you. Now you could still take day trips down there. You could still do excursions down to the southern end of the island, but just know it's going to be a whole day affair just because of the travel time. And if you want other videos about those 2 resorts that I toured, you can go to the card right here or the card right here and click on those to go explore my Royalton review as well as my Sandals Grand review. So let's move on to the south of the island. So the south of the island is overall quieter. It's more nature driven. If you are going to St. Lucia for the natural beauty, you've seen the photos and videos and images of those glorious pitons. You want to go see the waterfalls of Diamond Falls and Tortal Waterfall. You want to go on the Chzhed Trail and hike near the pitons. You maybe want to go swim between the pitons in Soufriere, or you want to go to explore Sugar Beach and go right between those white sand beaches and the beautiful pitons neighboring you on either side. Well, that is going to be the south of the island. Not to mention, don't forget about those mud baths. That is like therapy, natural therapy built in. But remember, it is more rural, it is more local, it is not as popular with the amount of resorts. I will say though, we toured 3 different resorts there. 2 of them are one of the highest end resorts that you can stay in all of the Caribbean, and that is Chzhed and Chzhed Mountain. These are the 2 resorts that have the most iconic views of those pitons. We also stayed in Chzhed, which was a gorgeous resort, very family run property. I would call it more of a boutique hotel, but it had glorious views of those pitons for a fraction of the cost of, say, Chzhed Mountain or Chzhed. And then we also toured Samphi Gardens, which also had some incredible views of those pitons. The other thing is you are very close to all of those natural attractions I just mentioned. We were able to go hike the Chzhed Trail. We were able to go to the mud baths. We were able to go to Diamond Waterfall and the botanical gardens, and just explore the colorful streets of Soufriere, exploring and interacting with the locals because of the proximity. If you're in the north, you're probably not going to spend as much time doing that because it's going to take you an hour and a half to 2 hours to even get there. Now, we did also go explore the north end of the island, and of course it took us an hour and a half or 2 hours to get there. But we enjoyed the best of both worlds by doing so. I recommend the south end of the island if you really want to have this kind of relaxing, quiet, less touristy experience of the island. If you're getting value so far, make sure you like and subscribe, ring that notification bell so you don't miss the rest of this travel planning series for St. Lucia. And if you're all ready, get planning your St. Lucia adventure, go down in the description and click that link. Let's schedule a call and let's explore St. Lucia. So, in where to stay is also the type of experience you're after. All-inclusive or more of that boutique local hotel experience. It's really a personal choice, and it has a lot to do with what you are looking to get out of this particular trip. I will say we've stayed at all-inclusives all over the Caribbean and enjoyed them immensely. And then we also have stayed at more local boutique hotels and enjoyed the experience of shopping in the local grocery store, cooking our own food, and really immersing ourselves in the culture. So it really just depends on the experience you want to have. I will say the all-inclusive are going to be more, you're staying on the resort, you're not getting out too much to explore the other parts of the island, and that's perfectly fine. You're going to find a lot more of those up in the north end of the island. And then if you want more of the traditional guest houses where you can explore the island a little bit more like a local, that's going to be more in the middle to southern end of the island, like Rodney Bay and Soufriere. So there's no wrong answer here. It's up to you. It's up to what type of travel you want. But I will say, if you are not the type that likes to be a little adventurous and you'd rather have things more or less taken care of for you, then please go with the all-inclusive. It's going to be the better choice for you. If though you are a little bit more adventurous, you like to go exploring on your own, you like to mingle in with the locals, then go to one of the guest houses. It's going to be a much more authentic experience for you, and you're going to come back feeling a little bit more fulfilled than staying at an all-inclusive. So another thing to consider on where to stay in St. Lucia is your transportation options. The north end of the island, like I said, is much more touristy, so you're going to have better connectivity with the different taxi companies. You don't always necessarily have to rent a car, whereas in the south, you almost always need to rent a car. It doesn't mean that you can't hire a taxi, but just keep in mind the taxis add up. They are expensive. They are not the most inexpensive way to travel, but you also need to be comfortable driving, number one, on the left side of the road, and also on the left side of the right side of the vehicle. See, I even get confused, and I did it myself. You are on the right side of the car, so you're driving on the passenger side if you're a US driver, and you are driving on the left side of the road. So it is a very different experience. It's something that takes a moment to get used to get acclimated to, but it is doable. I drove around that entire island, and the first day I have to kind of remind myself where I'm going, and only really when I'm turning. Once I'm just driving, it's fine, but when you go to turn, then you have to kind of remind yourself of where you're going on that turn. The right turns are more like a left turn, and the left turns are more like a right turn. So just as long as you know that and keep that straight in your mind, you're okay. I will say though that those roads are very windy, they are narrow. So if you're not comfortable as a driver, if you're not a confident driver, then honestly, stick with the taxis. It's going to be safer for you. You're going to have a more relaxing trip. You'll be able to sit back and enjoy the views versus white knuckling it around the island. I didn't have an issue. I enjoyed driving the island. To me, it was part of the adventure. It was part of the experience of being on the island, but I also acknowledge it is not for everyone. Now that brings us to the next series that we're going to talk about, is just kind of what to do, because that can also determine whether or not you want to drive yourself or if you want to taxi it about. So what are my recommendations based on the type of traveler you are? Well, if you're the first time visitor to St. Lucia, I recommend staying on the north end and maybe even at an all-inclusive. It will still give you a beautiful taste of the island without being overwhelming. If you are an adventure seeker, well then you know where to go, the south end of the island. That's where all the action is. That's where all the nature is. That's where all the exploration happens. And if you are going for romance, if you're going for your honeymoon, it's kind of the best of both worlds. You could certainly stay at an all-inclusive on the north end, but there's also all-inclusives on the south end. So it really depends how secluded you want to be, how peaceful you want to be, or if you're more the party type. North end, more party type. South end, more peaceful. If you are a repeat visitor, honestly, the south wins. Go ahead, it's time. You've been there several times and probably only stayed in Rodney Bay area. It's time to broaden your horizons a little bit. Go stay on the south end and see what that experience is like. I think you will come to absolutely love it. I'm ready to help you plan your trip to St. Lucia. I cannot wait to work with you. So make sure you head on down to the description, click the link, and let's schedule a call. I look forward to exploring what to do next in St. Lucia in our next video. Make sure you subscribe, ring that notification bell so you don't miss a thing. Until next time, travel safe.
Where are we going next? Let's go.